Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So right now I'm living in a house in Apache Junction. Let's see if we can get a view of the outside. But 3 years ago, maybe on the other side is better. But 3 years ago, I was living in another suburb of Phoenix called Levine Village, which is kind of similar in terms of size and population. It's too sunny to get any sort of. We got a swimming pool in here. Okay, and I had a little bit of a problem 3 years ago when I was living in Levine Village. I had moved into that house just after a very long trip. I think I had gone stargazing somewhere in the Arizona area. And when I got there, I had stopped at a Walmart to get a package of fish, among other food. And I got home, I was just about to prepare the fish. I got the fish out of the bag, and it was dripping all over the place. There was a hole in the package. I thought that's not a big deal. I kind of wanted to clean the floor anyway after getting to the house. But I looked and there's no paper towels. And I quickly realized there's no supplies of any sort, no toilet paper, no nothing like that. And I had just spent 4 or 5 hours on the road. And so I decided to take a walk to go back to that Walmart. I needed some exercise, and I went to get the supplies and everything. I cleaned up the floor, and then I realized there's nowhere to cook the fish because my roommates had left dishes piled high in the sink. I had thought about that because I had gotten some latex gloves, and because I can't really touch other people's dishes. I have food allergies. I think part of the problem with dishes is that nobody wants to touch somebody else's dishes, right? So you finish your business and you look and there's dishes piled high in the sink. And what do? You probably just pile your dishes on top of them. Now the person who originally left the dishes there, now they're not going to want to touch anything now, right? And it just becomes a huge traffic jam of some sort, right? But I was tired. I had spent 5 hours on the road. I had just walked for another half an hour, and I decided to take a nap before cleaning up the sink and cooking my fish and all that. I took a nap, and I made the mistake of leaving all my supplies out there. Now, nobody was going to steal anything or anything like that. People needed to use one set of gloves or one paper towel, and they conveniently forget the rest to put the rest of the paper towels back. It goes into a weird place. It goes into their room or whatever the situation is. They don't care. They didn't buy it. They don't care. So when I got up, I couldn't find the gloves. That was just really insulting. I had been thinking about having my favorite food during the entire trip home and all that. And the next day, I go out to get another set of silverware because they were nowhere to be found. And then the following day after that, it all disappeared. And I was thinking about what to do. This was in 2021. I had just gotten over my eating disorder problem. I didn't want to talk to my roommates about food issues because I know those things can rile me up too much. And so I went to Target and I bought about 100 forks, if I remember correctly, along with several boxes of toilet paper, among other things. And I decided to write a note because I couldn't talk. I get very angry when I talk about these things. I didn't want to blow up in front of my roommates. At the time, I didn't have the luxury of practicing that. If I mess up and I have to move out of that house, that was a big problem. Today, I have a little bit more freedom, right? I talked about this in other videos. In the past, I used to be terrified about if something at the workplace happened, right? My coworkers were taking my lunch or something like that. Yes, I realized that I'm not at fault for my coworker taking my lunch. The problem is that I have a tendency to get angry while talking about that. That's the kind of time when I'll get in trouble for assaulting somebody or saying something that I shouldn't say. And I used to have to swallow a lot of stuff like that because I didn't know how to control. I didn't know how to control my anger, and B, I often didn't have a whole lot of options, right? I didn't have 3 jobs where I could just be angry at one and rage quit that one job, right? I didn't have that kind of situation going for me. So what I did was I went to Target and bought a ton of supplies, and it was almost like COVID 2.0 all over again, right? When I went to shopping at Target, I probably spent a good fraction of an ounce of gold, if I remember correctly. And I got home and I wrote the note saying that, we all have to share this house together. Let's try not to make each other find toilet paper, find utensils every time. You guys remember? I think I even uploaded a video of the note and of where I was living and all that. And I left the supplies where I needed to leave them. And I crossed my fingers and I tried to enjoy life for just a couple of moments. The following day, I get back home and I'm thinking to myself, how many forks are going to disappear today? And so I went to the kitchen drawer and I decided to count the forks. I couldn't believe my eyes. All the forks, including the two that disappeared the day before, all reappeared. I think I bought 100 forks and now there were 102 all back again. And I couldn't go watch that video. I counted it 2 times. I think I joked that I got to do a Donald Trump and demand a recount. And I counted it all over again. And sure enough, there were 102. That was the best feeling in the world, right? Imagine if our elections could behave that way, where you count them 2, 3, 4 times in a row, and it just where you think it is, right? Too bad our elections can't behave like that, right? And so that was a wonderful feeling. I once again live with a few roommates. The owner of the house and one other roommate, she's a construction worker. And I hope I hope I can integrate all three of us together. Can you imagine if the three of us behave more like a family unit than like each one pulling in each other's ways, right? So the fortunate thing is that none of us have had to complain about each other. And as far as I know, not much has disappeared since I've gotten here. One of these days, I'm going to cook a meal for all of us so that I can integrate us together, right? 2 months ago, I was sick with, I was working with a tin alloy and I got heavy metal poisoning. And 6 months ago, I was grappling with long COVID. It would have been nice to live in a house where we all kind of integrated together, right? So I spent some time in Taiwan in the past. I was living in a hostel for about 3 weeks in Taipei. And over there, the hostel, I think, the room had 6 people, if I remember correctly. But the entire hostel had, I want to say at its peak, 40, 50 people. And it really behaved like a 40 or 50 person family. It really did. I was grappling with binge eating problems actually, and some of the people there even commented about my eating. You would never do that here in the United States, right? Certainly, things didn't disappear, right? If people used paper towels, they remember to put it back, right? You didn't have dishes piled high in the sink to be somebody else's problem, right? And uh, Taiwan, they were much more. During the pandemic, obviously, I didn't witness it with my own eyes. They were a lot more considerate with COVID kind of precautions, right? They didn't think it was an unnecessary burden if they had to wash their hands, right? And I think they have very few cases until like late into the pandemic when people started to other people from, because they have pilots who fly in and out of Taiwan who might be from a different culture and stay in a hotel over in Taiwan. I think those were the ones that started the late cases of the COVID. They didn't have a COVID spike until 2021, if I remember correctly. But continue to pray for me by leaving a dislike on this video. I'm hoping to kind of integrate all of us together. We might get roommates coming in and out too, so that might be the challenging part of it. And I'm gonna go out and buy some more supplies to make the place comfortable. And let's hope to integrate it all together, right? And the other thing I want to practice more of, now that I have the luxury of doing it, is to actually speak, right? The reason back in 2021, I wrote the note instead of sitting down with my roommates is that I had anger problems. I was still grappling with binge eating. Not having my favorite food and blaming somebody else because I couldn't have it was a big problem for me. I wouldn't be surprised if I would have punched somebody in the nose for hiding the paper towels or toilet or the utensils, and for me not being able to have my favorite foods. Number one, the anger. Number two, I didn't have a whole lot of options at the time. right? Today I have options. Now I can actually gamble more and speak up at work, right? When something untoward happens, or when somebody steals my lunch. First of all, I'm not going to be nearly as angry as I was 4 years ago. And second, I have other jobs to go to, right? I didn't have those two things going for me 4 years ago. And that really constrained everything. So pray that I integrate this household into one family. We are one big family, right? We might be like several distant cousins away, right? Several generations removed, right? But I got to remember, we're all one big family, right? All 8 billion of us, right? So pray that I integrate us back together by leaving a dislike on this video. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.